Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach.
I'm Holly Deschenes. I'm Brandon's co-host and producer for this podcast.
Today, we're kind of hitting a little bit of spring fever, getting out in the world more. And I think it's a good time to start to open things up. So, beginning of the year, we're usually unpacking, reflecting, and then trying to get clear on what we want. But then as we get some momentum going, we're going to be kind of shifting into this. Today, we're going to be talking about permission to think bigger. So, our minds kind of just plugged into our past and so we form expectations about what's possible for us there. And so yeah, we may be selling ourselves short a little bit. We may be not being able to see that bigger vision that could actually really get us excited. And so we're gonna just get kind of going on why these things get created and what we can do about to open it up a little bit more. And yeah, I think it's kind of just working with this energy of just getting out there more and figuring out what steps you have to take to make some progress here.
That sounds good. It's timely based on a conversation you and I had earlier. So excited to jump into that topic. But before we go there, I do want to do the question of the week for Brandon. And just as a reminder, we're still doing question of the week for Brandon. So if you have a question for Brandon, please send one in. You can do so via DM, text message, email the podcast, email Brandon. Any of those things will work. But the question today is around willingness. And I don't know how closely you follow Rich Roll, but he recently posted a reel from his podcast where he was talking about willingness and the energy related to willingness and how you can't force people who aren't willing. Like, even if you want it really bad for them, you can't make them do anything. But he references pain in this reel, and that often there has to be significant pain for someone to become willing. And he's talking about it from the standpoint of addiction recovery. I'm not necessarily saying I don't want to go in that direction, but I'm just thinking about that in general and curious about your thoughts on why it takes something painful for somebody to become willing to make a change in their life or move to the next step or whatever it is.
I mean, so this is a common one. So generally people that come to me are willing to do the work and willing to take a look at things. And generally our problems in our life have to do with other people. And so, when you dig in and you start to understand this stuff and you see that, it is possible to change and that, you kind of just have to do some deeper identity work. People like generally always want that for other people around them. It takes a lot of those experiences to there's always the attempts to change people or fix people or whatever it is because we think they're the source of our problems. Most people won't change until there is some big pain point that forces them to. And it doesn't have to be that way, but often that's the form it takes. So if you're a growth oriented person and willing to humble yourself, generally, that's where we have that humility to admit when we're wrong or when we make mistakes or that, I need a little help here. I don't know how to do better. It's through that lens that you get that path forward. But a lot of people through their ego and their stubbornness, especially I would say probably mostly males, can be a little bit stuck there where generally there's a dissociation from emotions. There's a detachment from it. With this work, we view emotions as feedback that actually allows me, if I work with that, I can change pretty rapidly. It's that disconnection from our emotion that we might think we're doing something, but our actions and what we're trying to align with usually is disconnected. And we're not getting that feedback to make the changes. Generally, we need, I call them wake up calls. I have a few of these conversations every week of people that want people to do things differently in their life. Maybe they see them heading on a destructive path. And generally, the wake up call is where you really start to question yourself. I had one of these conversations specifically this week where, someone had kind of talked about, they didn't want to, they thought they were doing okay until they put themselves in a situation where they could have like actually hurt another person. So most people are like, okay, like doing damaging things to themselves, but there's that switch of like, oh, I created this mess and this is actually affecting other people negatively. That can be a form of a wake-up call where oftentimes when people aren't handling their emotions, they just think it's their problem. But when it starts to spread outward, that can serve as that defining moment of like, okay, I need to make some changes. It's it's either you can align with these things, or you might have some things you've buried from your past that are stacking up on you, and these things keep building until it hits a breaking point, and that's what the wake up call is. Whether that's in financial life, whether that's health issues, things like that. The things we're not paying attention to, the things we're avoiding, are always building in the background. That's what's so cool about self-awareness practices, is you start to get in tune with that stuff when it's smaller. So yeah, this thing's just, it's an inconvenience, or it's bothering me or irritating me. I'm plugged into this like intense anger or rage. We get things when they're small because they're easier. That's the willingness piece, is to just acknowledge from the get-go that I know I'm not perfect. I'm doing the best I can. We all have blind spots, and through support and the people around us, we can get in tune with that. A lot of these challenging, stubborn people that won't look at stuff, a lot of times the people around them might see things for them and they're trying to tell them, but then they get defensive and reactive, right? So they don't take feedback well. So that shuts down that whole process. So there are some people that just aren't willing to hear it. And those are the ones that generally need something big to shake them up in order for them to start to question themselves. But it's in that realm of self-protection, or our ego always wants to preserve our identity. So if I've really built my life on certain beliefs, and I think they serve me, and they might have served me, like a lot of times, like high performers, that's built on not feeling good enough. But then there's a point where that person might hit a wall with that, because they might have this, that anger and that resentment might just keep building over time. And these things are really destructive to the body and the nervous system. So, you can't change other people. They have to want to change themselves. The best we can ever do is just model behaviors of, I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to work at things. I'm willing to shift and change if I see it's for my benefit. When people start to see us change, like we're providing that example. And that's usually the best we can do to help. And because a lot of times I'm fixated on changing the other person, and now I'm coming at it with this energy of there's something wrong with you. And then that's where that activates the defenses in the other person. People don't like to be treated that way. It does create a lot of resistance, and we feel like we're wrestling. And you commonly see these in problems in marriages, where it's kind of the other person's the problem and I'm just always trying to fix them. But it is this acceptance and in reorienting ourselves to relate to the situation differently. That's what actually creates change, because I refuse to participate on that level anymore. That's a level of accountability for that person to maybe look at some things that they're not looking at. When we're raised in these environments that are volatile, a lot of times we get by trying to make things easier for our parents, to try and like soothe their emotions so that they don't blow up. And so we start to do that in our adult lives as well. We're always kind of in this fixing mode. And so those are the people that are generally more drawn to this work, is because they see that things can be different and they have that willingness to change. But it's the people that they're trying to change is generally the big block there. And sometimes, yeah, like things, you kind of have to get to the point of like, okay, I refuse to live this way anymore. Like everybody's responsible for their own issues. I just have to keep detaching, keep showing up differently until that person's left to sit with whatever they're feeling. That might create the willingness when they have the fear of loss. Like it is specifically in a relationship, if they can sense that, maybe I'm getting tired of it, now that might kind of snap them into, okay, I actually do need to do something about this. So usually it's the fear of loss. Usually it's the fear of pain. Those are kind of those defining moments for people. A lot of times we view a lot of like kind of the older generations as stubborn, and generally they're very fixed in their mindset. And that's because they've built it over their lifetime, and they're very certain on what they believe about life. But those things might not be serving them. They might actually be damaging, and they might be damaging to relationships. And so a lot of times people won't reassess things in their life until they get the big health scare, like the cancer scare or heart attack, something like that, a big car accident. And yeah, it sucks because it doesn't have to be that way, but that's really the power of awareness and the power of humility, is to just understand that, we're all doing the best we can, and we should be learning every step of the way. No one's a finished product. There's always things that we can improve upon. And especially if our problems are starting to spill over onto other people, that's where you start to see people pull away from you and don't want to be around you is because the negative impact that has. If you start to see people pull away from you, that might be a sign that there might be some things you're doing that you're not aware of that are creating that stress. So yeah, I think it's a great point he made. I think it's a common path. I would say it's the norm actually, but you can certainly have a mindset where you're eager to grow through things and you can change without any of that stuff happening. It just kind of depends on how you're wired. The phrases I would use is like getting out ahead of things, meaning like, oh, I acknowledge that there's something here that doesn't feel good to me. And that's what the emotional feedback's important for. Like, hey, this is bothering me. What can I do to shift it? Because if I swallow it and I don't do anything about it and I just keep showing up in the same way, that's going to keep building that tension in my body. And then that's going to have a breaking point for me. It's just all this stuck energy we have where we're not living authentically. We don't feel like we're able to express ourselves or communicate effectively. Those things just keep building until something breaks. So that's usually the wake up call of, okay, I can no longer move forward in the same way. So that's where we have to really take a deeper look at life and make those adjustments.
You ready to pick up the topic for this
We
week?
can dig in.
So let's talk about giving ourselves the permission to think bigger.
We know what we know. Generally, there's a continuity to life where we start to form expectations of who we are and what's possible for us and how people treat us and like all those things. And we start to kind of build this identity of, this is who I am. I shouldn't expect more. Or anytime I did expect more or want more, that could have been shut down by the people around me. So many of us grew up in households more survival based where, dreaming's not necessarily allowed. It's kind of just like the expectations are just built around meeting basic needs. We encounter a lot of resistance when we have these bigger thoughts. I think it's natural for the child to dream until they learn that that's not safe. That's going to be when we put our ideas out there and they're not received well, or they're squashed, or we're shamed for having them. Then we keep them inside and bottle them up. If that happens long enough, we might just kind of settle into like, so this is how I need to be in order to be safe in my life. That's this idea of settling is I've just kind of settled into the norm of whatever my environment is. This ability to dream is to kind of see more for yourself and see outside the box that you're currently operating in. It does take creative imagination. It takes that just being able to see yourself in a different light. And that's what's so cool about this work is we get to create that, and then we get to line up the pieces to support it. Really, anybody that's ever done anything, it all started with an idea first. And then you have to become a person that can execute that idea. And so we need access to higher level thought. And when we're in survival environments, not only might not be allowed, but we might not have people in our life at all that function from possibility, And so I think if people grow up with two parents that are pretty beaten down and jaded, like that's pretty difficult to see a bigger picture. I had kind of one of like more of the serious than one of the, hey, like dream big, go after whatever you want. I think that really served me because that the dreaming big like always felt better to me, and it was exciting, and that's what's like driven me in life, is to like have these bigger visions for myself. I think we all have those capacities, but our environment just really might not support those. Generally, it's important to put ourselves in environments that are supportive of bigger things. And they always say like get in the room, be around people that think differently, be around people that operate on a different level. For you at work, you've gotten to work with the executives and things like that. And it's just a different energy of how they carry themselves, like the things that are normal to them in their life. It's kind of, you need exposure to that type of stuff. They always say like when you travel, like go spend time in a really nice hotel or something like that. Or even if you're on a budget, go get a drink at the bar or something. Go be around that stuff, because there's people that have made their way in the world and they see these big possibilities for themselves. And if we haven't had exposure to that, it's going to be very difficult to start to conjure that up for ourselves. A big part of it is going and putting yourself in those situations where you feel like you're at a lower level than everybody else. Those are pretty defining moments, but like as you get around people that operate at a higher level, one, you're going to notice the differences of the way they think, and it is generally more optimistic. But then two, you're also going to see like, oh, well, like they might not actually be very exceptional at anything, right? They might just be have a lot of self-belief. They might just really put a lot of action behind the things they want, and they go after it, and through that self-belief they make things happen. And so we can start to align or match up our skill sets to some of these things of like, not only can I see like where I might actually be further along than I think I really am, but then also I might see my growth opportunities of, the dealing with people and the way you hold yourself and carry yourself and the way you speak to others. It's all those things we can start to observe that stuff in other people. And these are all skills that can be developed. They all take time, but it starts with the exposure, and then the exposure creates bigger thinking of like, yeah, why not me? I think that's like a defining idea is why not me? Because like everybody started from somewhere, and some of the greatest people that we admire like started in pretty humble beginnings or pretty intense, rough beginnings. It's all dependent on your mindset. And it's this refusal to settle. It's this refusal to accept less for your life. That's really important. And it's we have to develop those faculties to think outside the box. So that's creative thinking. I have to be able to envision other possibilities for me. That's what's interesting is I think with like social media, we have such a window into all different types of lifestyles now, but most people just look at it and they compare themselves and they're like, oh, I'm not there, and it shuts them down. So rather than like being inspired by different things, they're like, oh, I can never have that, right? There's this like submission or acceptance of your current situation. But how are you filtering that information? Is it through jealousy and envy? And or do we want to like tear people down or make the negative comments, or do we want to say, I'm curious about how they got there? And that's a lot of it can be illusionary, which is kind of the other factor of like, well, there are people that can put on a good show where there's not actually anything behind it. And so that's where we have to learn discernment. But, there's an energy that somebody carries when they've really like done the work, when they've taken their long road, they've gone through a lot of hard things, and they've grown from every opportunity. That creates like a stability and a calmness and also a lot of wisdom. Those are the types of people we probably want to, you know, observe and kind of see what they've got going on, and listen to what they have to say, because there is the strength to what they're saying because it's backed up with experience. It's not just something, and generally like a person like that is not going to be super flashy and kind of trying to project this big image. It's this ability to attune to people that are supporting your dreams. We have to zone into what really interests you, what excites you. And then it's like finding teachers, mentors, people that have done great things in that area and starting to learn those stories, starting to understand like how they got there. If somebody else has done it, there is a path to it. I have to believe that it's possible for me. And the way that I start to build that is I start heading in that direction. And once again, the biggest challenge we always talk about is the timeline. Many of us, we want results faster than they come. We don't want to go through all the tough times. And that's the ambitiously lazy idea of I want great things, but I'm not willing to put in the work. Well, the truth is like everything does take work, and it takes time, and it takes a lot of problem solving along the way. And so it's really getting yourself in tune with reality of like, this is where I'm currently at, but this is where I want to be. And how do I measure myself? Well, like what skills do I need to develop? That we can use models. We can use somebody that does it really well, and we can kind of explore, what their skill sets are so that they embody that type of energy. Right. And then we get to work on developing it. It's kind of seeing that we all come from somewhere. Some of us may have had a more intense past than others, but it's really how I'm seeing these situations. Do I view them as things that have happened to me, or do I view them as who I am? It's the identity piece is huge, where if I start to internalize the things that have happened to me and make it about me, now I don't feel like there's more possibilities for me. That's where I really start to settle into this is all there is. Once we do that, you'll notice people's like mood starts to shift, right? When they've lost that spark, generally they are kind of more negative, more depressed, like that kind of thing. They don't carry themselves very well because they're defeated. The way we do it is all mindset. I can break down these things that have happened to me, and I can detach my identity from them. And I can actually learn from those experiences. And from that, I'm going to develop skills and gifts that are going to serve me on my path. So the problems that you're given are designed to build you and based on your purpose. So the thing that does excite you, everything that's happened to you is really, if we can unpack it and learn from it and shed the identity piece of this is who I am and I'm a victim of things. If we can let that go, now I can grow through it and I can get stronger and I can be on my path to start to become the person that I want to be. Initially, we use models that, okay, this is their path. Like, it's probably going to be something similar, but you're going to have your own unique path given the context of your circumstances. But it's also, the further along you get, it is really about coming into your own and really owning your own energy. That's where you start to detach from models of like, okay, I'm starting to really understand who I am and what's unique about me. And so I needed this to get going, but eventually I'm going to shed that. Eventually I'm going to let that go and just really become who I am. That's things to stand out or be successful in any area. Like, you have to be a strong individual. Like, you have to really understand who you are and you have to be okay being different. That's all part of the process. But using models is how we start to build through that is we can see that there is a path to it. There's going to be some commonalities of things I need to develop, but ultimately it's going to be in my own way. And that's the thing, is we have to allow ourselves to be okay with, okay, there's this person I look up to right now. We don't want to have an ego about that. Eventually we want to see ourselves as a similar level, but that's way down the road. So initially we need somebody to kind of model, to take us through it. And it is finding mentors, it's reading inspiring books and videos and all those types of things. Like, that gives us some clues on like how we need to align ourselves. But ultimately it's going to be you coming to peace with your past and allowing yourself to move forward in a new way. If I'm anchored in my past, that's going to be blocking me from moving forward. And so I have to address that stuff. Otherwise I'm going to be always in this place of conflict with myself. I might feel like I don't deserve it. I might feel like I'm not good enough. I might feel like, once again, why me? But it serves us to think like, why not me? It serves us to think I am good enough. It serves us to think that I do deserve good things. But it might take a while to build that into our psychology.
If we are working on this idea of thinking bigger, I can't remember what episode number it was, but we talked about permission to be delusional. It's a little bit, or could maybe feel a little bit like that. But I guess my question is more around this, taking the idea from just thinking about it to doing it.
We need that first stage to explore it mentally. Okay. And that's like the research stage. That's important. Like, we need to get some groundwork. We need to understand, like, what am I actually grasping here? But the thing that holds us back from action is going to be the self-belief stuff. It is. So once I have enough to move forward with, I want to start to take some steps, and they don't have to be huge steps. We just want, go explore it, go put yourself in the arena, go try things out. We don't want to judge ourselves too harshly when we're early on in the process, but we also want to be in tune with, I just went out there, put myself out there, and these things happened and they don't feel very good. Well, that's all data for us, right? The parts of us that judge us harshly, that's going to be our shame. That's going to be the times we got embarrassed or somebody called us out on something or made us feel bad about something. And so that's the stuff that stagnates us and holds us back from action, is being shamed for wanting more. Okay. And so we have to keep working through the shame, because that's what's going to support taking more and more action, is we start to care less about the judgments of others. That's kind of the final boss for everybody, is the opinions of others really does put us in a prison. And so we just have to keep pushing up against that to try and get things moving. The further along we get, the less we care. And even when you're pretty far along, there are still things that are going to get the best of you. But it's kind of knowing that, okay, I need to gather information first. I need to start to work out within myself, like, what are steps I can take given the situation I'm in. I might not be able to do a lot. I might not have many resources, so I have to just try and figure out, like, what's some small steps I can take towards this. I have to go get experiences with it. Sometimes when we take those steps, we might actually decide, hey, this isn't what I thought it was. And that's feedback too. But But, and that's things, you start off very general. Things are pretty open in the beginning. And so you give yourself that permission to explore. And as you do that, you're going to get clarity where this isn't exactly it, but maybe if I make these adjustments, that might seem like it fits a little better. So you're not going to have the full vision. You're not going to have all the steps, but it's like we get that data by taking steps, and we take the steps that feel manageable to you. If you're absolutely terrified to do something, like, of course you can go put yourself out there and do it, but is that going to be damaging to you? So the first step is we kind of build ourselves up. We ready ourselves for action. We're just trying to familiarize ourselves with the situation, and we're just trying to gain a little bit of confidence, just enough so that I can put myself out there in some way. I'm not going to be completely lost. And and so as we get that feedback, we unpack it, and it's like, what could I do better? It's always this, what went well, what could be better, right? And this is commonly what we do with athletes. It's simply just with each race, with each event, we're going to like celebrate the wins. Where did we have progress? We're also going to take a look at what still needs adjustments. And it's this ability to receive feedback that's important, right? Because we only know what we know. And sometimes somebody that is a lot further along than us can really speed up our path if we're willing to listen. So that goes back to the willingness piece is, we can't be too stubborn. And in the beginning, you probably won't have great teachers either. Like, it's based on your energy. It's based on the level you're at, where you just need somebody that knows a little bit more than you do. And that's usually not like a high priced item. That's usually just like, oh, okay, yeah, they've got some pieces for me. So I'm gonna work with them, and they're gonna point some things out to me, and I'm gonna get more and more clarity. And so as I master those steps, I might start to search out somebody a little bit higher level than that. And I just keep doing that, because a lot of do most people need to like work with like the master coach when they're just starting off? Like, no. So like an Olympic level coach, or like Tony Robbins or something like that, like you don't need to go seek out that person. You need to seek out somebody that has like maybe dedicated their life to this, but they might just be a normal person. So knowing that if you have a normal person, there's generally just going to be it's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, where they're not like this really confident expert. They might have some insecurities. They might project some of their regrets onto you, like those types of things. We kind of hold these things loosely, where it's like high level people are high level people for a reason. Okay, they've worked all the kinks out of things, and so that they can be consistent, and they're really kind of detached from trying to hitch to your wagon. So, but somebody might have gotten so far with something and they didn't get any further. So they might have some good beginner steps for us, but it might be a mixed bag in terms of them emotionally. If somebody's like good hearted, and you got a good relationship with them, you might be able to make some good progress there. But then, there's probably going to be a point where you outgrow that person if you're really dedicated to your path. And that's where we seek up. We try to level up. And so what does my next level support look? So you just keep tightening up the path every step of the way. So it starts very general, and then it gets more and more specific. And the further along you get, you're more in refinement. You're more in like subtle details, not the big changes that need to happen. So early on, you need big changes generally when you're heading in a direction, but it's like that's just the beginner phase, is kind of learning the foundations. Once you get past foundations, now we get into specifics. That's the path to everything. But it's this ability to be humble, to receive feedback, but also this ability to like believe in yourself is what we're really after. So the people that just don't quit, the people that really are determined, that deep down know they're worthy no matter what, even if they don't feel that way in the moment, like those are the ones that make a ton of progress, because they're fighting for their dream. But and they might not have all the tools at this point, but they know if they stick with it, that they'll eventually get there. A lot of times that's kind of the journey of somebody fresh out of college, like in their 20s, right? They're trying to prove themselves. They generally have a specific aim, sometimes not, but once you get started, once you get that determination, it's like a lot of times you overestimate yourself too in those beginner stages, where you think things are going to happen faster than they actually do. But that's why we really just want to keep refocusing on what my next steps are. What's my next step for my growth, which is a very specific thing to you. So it's this ability to go internal and really build yourself and pay less and less attention to other people over time. But it's, we get on a track and then we just keep getting more specific with the adjustments to align with what we want. That's that ability to stick with something and really put in the effort and the time and focus and energy that it takes. There's really no other way to do these things. But we often talk about pivots, where, okay, I've been doing this one thing for a long time and I don't see how that connects with other things. I feel like I'm starting over. Well, that's generally not true. Generally, there's a lot of good things that have happened here. It's just being able to connect the dots on how this process is very similar to this process. That can kind of speed up our path where we start to see that we actually have a lot of tools already established and we try to transfer those over. And there might be new skills to build, but we want those to be complementary to what you already have. There's no wasted time. There's no wasted energy. Everything is an exploration and we're always free to make new decisions. And so a lot of times we get so invested in one thing that it's hard to see that leap or to see that transfer for us. The truth is it's easier than you think if you allow yourself to shift your identity, right? I've just gotten too wrapped up in this lane, but this has also created a lot of good things that have carryover. And so I just need to bridge that gap. It's not actually me starting new.
Say a little bit more about the shifting of identity and that making it easier, because the shifting the identity is not easy.
So what do is we put labels on everything. Our job has a title, like all these things, we identify with these things, right? When I'm trying to shift my identity, well, I have to start to detach from that title or that label, and I have to start to see myself in this other light. And that's a bit of a process. I need to detach from especially if we're in a job, it's just like, oh, this is how I receive money. This is how I live. My identity is wrapped up in this is how I get my paycheck. But if we distill it down to like, okay, what skills do I have and what are my gifts and how can I leverage that other ways? Now I can see myself, you see it a lot with people that are in the corporate world and then they like become coaches and stuff like that. You first just start trying it out. Like you first just, okay, I'm a coach now. A lot of times when you're saying you're a coach, in the beginning stages, you have no clients. You don't have people you're working. It's that transition of like, I'm starting to build this new version of me. I kind of have to be a little bit out ahead of myself. I have to put something out there that I have to grow into. And if I have this interest of like, I want to do coaching, well, I'm going to start like telling people I'm a coach. I'm going to start like acting like it. I'm going to start researching. I'm going to start gaining that knowledge. I might start working with people for free just to get some reps in. That as you start doing it, now it starts to feel more natural that, okay, I am actually coaching. So it's not a lie anymore. So it's like you put it out front and then you take the steps to try and make it happen. And so that means trying to find opportunities, trying to create something. As you start doing it, now it might not be a full-time thing yet. I have a couple clients. I'm still calling myself a coach. I still have my normal job that actually pays the bills, but I'm committing more and more to this other area so that I can eventually transition into it. We speed up the process by, really embodying the beliefs that takes and also being able to detach from the safety of our current role. We have to be willing to let that go and we have to be willing to see ourselves differently, because if I don't believe it, nobody else is going to believe it either. It all comes back to me all the time of like the beginning stages of what I was doing. I had clients and stuff, but there was times where it was like, that was my full-time thing. There's times I had to fill in with other stuff. And now it's been my full-time thing for quite a while now. So it's this acceptance of like, yeah, this is just who I am. Like, I don't question it anymore, but you have to kind of work through those kinks of if your time is split into something else, I have to continually detach from that. And I have to continually support this if I want to grow it. That's kind of the leap is like, eventually we're going to have to fully commit. But we kind of build that bridge though. We don't just go from one to the next because that really shakes us up. We're in for about 6 months of pain if we do that a lot of times. Of like, oh, like my whole world just changed and now I have to reorient myself. So it's like about most things are going to be this gradual shift, and it's about you committing more and more energy to what you're trying to accomplish. And then it's also we're supporting your belief in it. So the more practice you get in something, you start to build confidence about, oh, I can solve all these different problems. And you kind of just pick a lane. So a lot of people will just start as like a life coach or a dating coach or some specific topic. But then as you're in that, you're going to start to see, oh, this is kind of easy. Like maybe I want some other expressions of this. So then you might kind of find a bigger lane to go journey into if that's limiting to your skill set. But some people are like happy just staying in that lane forever, and that's fine. But it's kind of like you as you get the reps, you start to understand like what it is you really want. It's putting things into practice, and you're trying to just continually create this buy-in with yourself. And the more you buy in it yourself, now it's like I'm more influential when I go to talk to other people. They can start to feel the confidence because I'm starting to make this my identity. In triathlon, a lot of times we have the three sports, and a lot of times people aren't very good at one of them. And so they don't see themselves as a cyclist. They don't see themselves as a runner. They don't see themselves as a swimmer. Whatever you're lacking, if we want to develop that skill, we start to have to embody it. So for me, not being a swimmer, I have to start to form the belief that, hey, I can swim. And you keep working your way to this point where it gets like, oh yeah, I'm a swimmer. And then it's matter of fact. We don't like think about it anymore because it's integrated into who we are. It's just the identity can be this powerful driver. If I don't attach to something, then I think it's not possible for me. But if I do attach to it and I start building towards it, now I like become that. It can be this like very support, a lot of times me talking, we might say it's not bad to put it's bad to put labels on you, but that's actually how we experience things. It's just many times we've put labels on us that we've outgrown, but we're too attached to the label that we won't let it go. And that's what's holding us back, is our identity is still wrapped up in this old way of being because that's familiar. To make our way in the world, we need to have some sort of identity because that's what generates the self-belief. So I can have the victim mindset, or I can have this like, why not me mindset of like, okay, I'm going to go after these things and I'm going to figure it out as I go. The more problems I solve, the stronger I get, the more it just becomes part of who I am, where there's no part of me that's like really kind of denying that belief in myself anymore.
The swimming example's good. A little bit, and counter me on this if you see it different, but a little bit of some of this sounds like exposure therapy.
You got to expose yourself to the stresses, because until I put some action behind anything, it's always just I'm building it up in my head. Because I don't have the experience, my mind's like creating all these scenarios that are usually not true. Okay. But it creates anxiety, it creates tension. It can be paralyzing, especially if we're terrified of putting ourselves out there in a certain way. Like, we have to work through those blocks a little bit. And that's the thing is we take the step that feels manageable to start off with. We're not doing anything crazy to start off with. I just need to go get some experiences so that I get some feedback to work with. You just keep putting yourself in there and seeing what happens. But we do have to detach from outcomes early on. Okay. We have to get more into the process, because if I'm really focused on the outcome immediately, like that's going to destroy me. Because if I'm a beginner at something, the outcome's probably not going to be that great. I might take that feedback as like, oh, I'm terrible at this. Why should I try? But like you keep trying and you keep detaching from the outcome and you just keep putting the work in. And you can literally like build any lane you'd like. You have to go through that process. You have to confront the thing that terrifies you. You have to work through it and trust that you're going to be safe and okay. And that not many things are actually that big a deal. It's just a big deal in our own mind.
There's another podcast in this. We don't necessarily have the time today to completely unpack it, but for me personally, it's going to be a visibility related issue. So for another day, but just to throw that out there as these things are pretty linked together. The other thing I was thinking as you were talking about it and being like, there's all of that, being willing to like put yourself out there, suck in the beginning, all of that. But as we're going through trying to find the answers, and maybe it starts out with like YouTube videos or podcasts or whatever, I make it up a little. Sometimes in those experts, they say things that are not the reality for the average person. Example, it might take you 10 episodes of doing a podcast before you start to see growth in it. It took way more than 10. there can be like expectations in that could actually stop someone. Like maybe they are thinking, they are taking steps, and then this expert
Yeah.
says this thing, and right. So let's talk about that.
Well, part of it's most people like want to be liked, right? It's like they don't necessarily want to be the truth teller. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I think the hope is that, okay, if I put this out there, that seems manageable enough for most people that they might start to do it. But then as you get into it, it is a much bigger process. It might be kind of like dangling the carrot a little bit, because most things, yeah, do take a pretty good amount of time, and most people don't want to hear that. That's the conflict. If I just want people to feel good, like, yeah, I might say those things, but that's not like how I'm building my brand. No, like, this is the process. Like, either accept it or don't, but it's going to take time, unless you have like tons of resources, unless you have like all this stuff where you can hire like the best in the world. But you see that with like, in the coaching industry, if people have like a successful like executive career or whatever, they have all the resources where they can just hire all the best people to like speed up the process for them. It's kind of, you got to be in acceptance of where you're at. If I've never done anything before, like, yeah, it's good for me to just get started and see what happens. But it is that ability to detach from, making everything like the end of the world if it doesn't go the way you want it to. That's detaching from outcome. And many people are going to sugarcoat things and tell you what you want to hear. I don't think that's like a bad thing, because that might actually be motivating. That might get people going. Uh, but the truth is most people actually won't stay the whole journey. Most people will give up after 10 episodes. What's the numbers on that?
Average is less than 10, but
Yeah.
yeah.
When you're talking to like just your average person, they're distracted, and they don't have the focus to really stick with something, or they're making decisions in their life that pull their attention somewhere else. They're not able to have that follow through long term. But everything that does like stabilize it, it does take you continuously working at it, continuously tinkering with it. Sometimes it can be a very long road. Of course, there's things that can come in and speed up that process, but the skill set's the skill set. And if you don't have it, you know, there's only one way to develop it. And if you don't have it, you're not going to last very long anyway, because now you're like living a lie. You can't like keep presenting this version of you that doesn't exist. We need to believe in that version of us, but we need to grow into it. So the getting people going conversation is a very different one than the, hey, like, this is what it actually takes to be great or be successful at something. I mean, most people are just trying to have big followings. And so it is going to be more of that stuff of just giving people little things to latch onto that make them feel good. That's, motivational speaking is that way too. You get everybody pumped up, and then as soon as they're out of the room, it's like they're confronted with their life, and then they're just like, yeah, this is impossible, right? So what we talk about here is why it's impossible. It's because of your past. It's because none of your beliefs support it. And we want to address that stuff, and we want to start to build that self-belief so that you can actually continue to move forward and get what you want. But it is a process, and it's a self-discovery process. When you go after something that's bigger than you, like it does stretch you. It does force you to grow. It does force you to look at things that maybe you're scared of or you want to avoid. And so that's the process actually, is getting into that stuff, letting that stuff go, and then letting yourself evolve into this new version. And so that does mean shedding your current identity and exchanging it for something that's exciting to you, that would make you like feel really good about yourself. I do need to align with that. And that's what the actual work is I need to develop the skill sets. I do need to develop the self-belief, because many people like don't stick with things long enough to actually create results. And so, and that's, I'm very mindful of that. I don't like step into anything that I'm not like willing to do for years. Okay. I don't dabble, because it's just like, if I'm just doing it just to do it, like, and it's not this like, yeah, I can see why this is important to align this with my mission. You also lose integrity there too, of like, oh, I say I'm going to do all these things, then I don't do them. It's more of like, yeah, like when I'm ready to do something now, it's like just an integrated part of my life that like I just keep doing. And it's doing most of the time. There's going to be things that happen and come up, but it's like If you can't commit to something on a pretty regular basis, then it's probably not worth starting in. That's that reality check of just being really honest with yourself.
Let's go through your closing thoughts on thinking bigger, key takeaways, anything like that.
This is that the creative faculties, if we're really caught in survival or just wrapped up in the day to day, it's going to be very hard to see anything different for yourself. And that's why we always talk about taking a step back and thinking deeper about things, because that's what brings the clarity on what you really want. So any like fundamental change you're going to want to make is going to have to be something you're excited about and something you're fully on board with, because there are problems that surface. There's obstacles that come up. We can't casually go at things. We want to, if I'm going to take that step back and really connect to this bigger vision, the second step is going to be like, am I willing to do what it takes? Am I willing to make sacrifices? Like all that stuff. We want something big enough that we would make sacrifices for, that might be uncomfortable. That might be from our norm. It's always we're sacrificing for the bigger vision. So short-term discomfort for long-term success or happiness or joy, whatever we want to call it, whatever it is you want, like there is a path to it. If you're 5 foot tall, you might not be an NBA player, like that kind of thing. But it's like most things aren't that, right? It's
Except for
it's
that guy who was on the Hornets in the 90s. What was his
yeah,
name?
the Muggsy Bogues. There's exceptions to every rule too, right? You want to find something that's aligned with who you are and something that's authentic to you. You do have this power to create. We don't feel like we have it because a lot of times we're in these environments that don't support it or shut it down or shamed it. That's where we feel like, I'm going to settle or I'm going to give up on this stuff. It's because of all the resistance that came up that said this, you don't deserve this. It's not okay to want it. Right. And so a lot of times that message is coming from people that are jaded, beaten down by life, gave up on their dreams a long time ago, never went after their dreams, like that type of thing. It's being selective about who you listen to. If you're in a tough situation, there's always a path forward, but a lot of times it's being able to take steps back and reassess how you're relating to people, maybe forming some boundaries, making some adjustments there, and then starting to get on that path of exploring what you want. And so that's going to mean go do some research, go listen to podcasts, go watch videos, go read books, like do all that stuff. That's the beginning stages. Once we start to get a concept of what it is, then we have to start taking some sort of action. And we detach from the outcome on that, and we just use every experience as feedback, and we unpack it and we figure out how we can learn from it, right? If we judge ourselves harshly, that's going to hurt the process. Anytime we're trying something new, there's going to be challenges. We're not going to be very good at it. We have to let go of the shame, because that's going to free us up to get back in that playful state that we need. The state of play is actually where we learn at an accelerated rate. So you have to enjoy what you're doing. And we have to make it not a big deal to start off with. We just have to make it a hobby. We just have to make it fun. We just have to make it exciting enough that you want to continue. And the further along you get, it does tend to get a little more serious, but then you've also built the foundation that can carry you through things where you start to trust your path more. That's all we're trying to do, is continually stabilize you. This podcast in general is just about pointing out the things that are holding you back, because they do hold everybody back, whether you're aware of it or not. We're just trying to shine a light on that, so that if you're encountering some of these problems, it's probably linked to some of these things from your past. And so it really serves you to move past that stuff, because your nervous system just wants to keep you safe. And if you've decided something's not safe, like, you're going to have this internal tug of war going on. It's all about aligning. It's all about finding ways to believe in yourself. And obviously the further along we get, now things start to become normal to us, but then we're also around other people that are operating in a similar way. And that also continues to support the path. A lot of times it's just giving yourself permission to open up. And then, it might be a little bit tough going to start off with, but that's what life is about. It's this ability to live authentically and live some sort of purpose, something that's meaningful to you, because that's what lights us up, right? That's what creates that spark. That spark is who everybody wants to be. There just might be some things that have happened to you that have like dimmed your light a little bit. And so we can wake that back up at any time. So, I encourage you to really start to ask some deeper questions, try to see your life a little bit differently in a way that gives you a path forward. You're never stuck or trapped forever. There's always a way out. It just might take a little bit of work to get there.
Cool. You want to share with everyone best places to find you and any other updates, news, things you got coming up?
Yeah, so if you're interested in this work and want to have a conversation, you can book a 30-minute strategy session with me on my website, brandonthelk.com. So we just have a little conversation where I get your background and what you're working towards and share how it can help. You can also register for my newsletter, The Lightning Report, that comes out each Monday with updates on the business and some deeper thoughts for the week to just kind of ponder. You can register for that on my website as well. Please follow along on YouTube and Instagram at Brandon Thielk and at bthielk on TikTok. So I will be going back and doing another cycling camp in April. I'm just going to go for 2 days this time, but yeah, so I'll be speaking there and getting to experience those folks there. So excited to do that again.
Where's
And
this one?
it's in Tucson, same place. So yeah, I'll be doing more of that stuff. We're going to be talking about how to get some group events going, things like that. So just be on the lookout for updates. Please like, subscribe, comment, ask some questions. Would love to hear from you guys and provide some insights if there's anything you're struggling with.
Sounds good. Talk to you later, Brandon.
See you.